Hey everybody, it is December 19th, which means yesterday was December 18th, and we had the historic vote that the House of Representatives voted to impeach Trump as the third president to be impeached. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about what was actually done. So I've seen lots of confusion, let's say, over what was actually done. So, the House of Representatives passed a bill. It was House Resolution 755 of the 116th Congress, which is 2019 to 2020. And let's see, this resolution was submitted December 10th, and then reported with amendment on December 15th, and then was passed last night, December 18th. So it's actually not that long. So I'll just go ahead and read it. So, resolution impeaching Donald John Trump, President of the United States, for high crimes and misdemeanors. Resolved that Donald John Trump, President of the United States, is impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, and that the following articles of impeachment be exhibited to the United States Senate. Articles of impeachment exhibited by the House of Representatives of the United States of America in the name of itself and of the people of the United States of America against Donald John Trump, President of the United States of America, in maintenance and support of its impeachment against him for high crimes and misdemeanors. Article 1. Abuse of power. The Constitution provides that the House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment, and that the President shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. In his conduct of the office of President of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional oath, faithfully to execute the office of the President of the United States, and to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, Donald J. Trump has abused the powers of the presidency in that, and here we get to the meat. Using the powers of his high office, President Trump solicited the interference of a foreign government, Ukraine, in the 2020 United States presidential election. He did so through a scheme or course of conduct that included soliciting the government of Ukraine to publicly announce investigations that would benefit his re-election, harm the election prospects of a political opponent, and influence the 2020 United States presidential election to his advantage. President Trump also sought to pressure the government of Ukraine to take these steps by conditioning official United States government acts of significant value to Ukraine on its public announcement of the investigations. President Trump engaged in the scheme or course of conduct for corrupt purposes in pursuit of personal political benefit. In doing so, President Trump used the powers of the presidency in a manner that compromised the national security of the United States and undermined the integrity of the United States democratic process. He thus ignored and injured the interests of the nation. President Trump engaged in this scheme or course of conduct through the following means. 1. President Trump, acting both directly and through his agents within and outside the United States government, corruptly solicited the government of Ukraine to publicly announce investigations into A. a political opponent, former Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr., and B. a discredited theory promoted by Russia, alleging that Ukraine, rather than Russia, interfered in the 2016 United States presidential election. 2. With the same corrupt motives, President Trump, acting both directly and through his agents within and outside the United States government, conditioned 2 official acts on the public announcements that he had requested. A. The release of $391 million of United States taxpayer funds that Congress had appropriated on a bipartisan basis for the basis of providing vital military and security assistance to Ukraine to oppose Russian aggression, and which President Trump had ordered suspended. And B. A head of state meeting at the White House, which the President of Ukraine sought to demonstrate continued United States support for the government of Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. 3. Faced with the public revelation of his actions, President Trump ultimately released the military and security assistance to the government of Ukraine, but has persisted in openly and corruptly urging and soliciting Ukraine to undertake investigations for his personal political benefit. These actions were consistent with President Trump's previous invitations of foreign interference in United States elections. In all of this, President Trump abused the powers of the presidency by ignoring and injuring national security and other vital national interests to obtain an improper personal political benefit. He also betrayed the nation by abusing his high office to enlist a foreign power in corrupting democratic elections. Wherefore, President Trump, by such conduct, has demonstrated that he will remain a threat to national security and the Constitution if allowed to remain in office, and has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with self-governance and the rule of law. President Trump thus warrants impeachment and trial, removal from office, and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. Article 2. Obstruction of Congress. The Constitution provides that the House of Representatives shall have sole power of impeachment, and that the President shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors in his conduct of the office of President of the United States and in violation of his constitutional oath to faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States and to the best of his ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, Donald J. Trump has directed the unprecedented, categorical, and indiscriminate defiance of subpoenas issued by the House of Representatives pursuant to its sole power of impeachment. President Trump has abused the powers of the presidency in a manner offensive to and subversive of the Constitution, in that the House of Representatives has engaged in an impeachment inquiry focused on President Trump's corrupt solicitation of the government of Ukraine to interfere in the 2020 United States presidential election. As part of this impeachment inquiry, the committees undertaking the investigation serve subpoenas seeking documents and testimony deemed vital to the inquiry from various executive branch agencies and offices and current and former officials. In response, without lawful cause or excuse, President Trump directed executive branch agencies, offices, and officials not to comply with those subpoenas. President Trump thus interposed the powers of the presidency against the lawful subpoenas of the House of Representatives and assumed to himself functions and judgments necessary to exercise the sole power of impeachment vested by the Constitution in the House of Representatives. President Trump abused the powers of his high office through the following means. 1. Directing the White House to defy a lawful subpoena by withholding the production of documents sought therein by the committees. 2. Directing other executive branch agencies and offices to defy lawful subpoenas and withhold the production of documents and records from the committees, in response to which the Department of State, Office of Management and Budget, Department of Energy, and Department of Defense refused to produce a single document or record. 3. Directing current and former executive branch officials not to cooperate with the committees, in response to which 9 administration officials defied subpoenas for testimony, namely John Michael Mick Mulvaney, Robert B. Blair, John A. Eisenberg, Michael Ellis, Preston Wells Griffith, Russell T. Vought, however you pronounce that, Michael Duffy, Brian McCormack, and T. Ulrich Breckbull. These actions were consistent with President Trump's previous efforts to undermine United States government investigations into foreign interference in United States elections. Through these actions, President Trump sought to arrogate to himself the right to determine propriety, scope, and nature of an impeachment inquiry into his own conduct, as well as the unilateral prerogative to deny any and all information to the House of Representatives in the exercise of its sole power of impeachment. In the history of the Republic, no president has ever ordered the complete defiance of an impeachment inquiry or sought to obstruct and impede so comprehensively the ability of the House of Representatives to investigate high crimes and misdemeanors. This abuse of office served to cover up the president's own repeated misconduct and to seize control of the power of impeachment, and thus to nullify a vital constitutional safeguard vested solely in the House of Representatives. In all of this, President Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice, and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore, President Trump, by such conduct, has demonstrated that he will remain a threat to the Constitution if allowed to remain in office, and has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with self-governance and the rule of law. President Trump thus warrants impeachments and trial, removal from office, and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. Whew. All right, that took a little bit longer than I thought it was going to. But, so you can see the two charges that the House is levying against him. So, Article 2 is, obstruction of Congress, basically, saying that Trump got in the way of research and evidence finding by the House, by, telling people in the administration and in, the various executive agencies to not show up. Not, if the Congress is asking for this piece of paper, don't give it to them. And Article 1 is the whole thing with Ukraine. And, so it's interesting. The Article 2, he's probably guilty of. So, if they issued a subpoena and Trump said that, don't respond to the subpoena, then yeah, that's an interference. Does it rise to the level of a high crime misdemeanor? Well, that's, at this point for the Senate to decide. And, Article 1, though, which is like the core of the whole thing, which is how this whole thing started, is a little weird. So for those who haven't been following the story, Biden goes to Ukraine because I guess he was in charge of relations with Ukraine under Obama. And there, for whatever reason, there's this prosecutor he doesn't like, right? So Biden says, unless you fire this guy, this, $1 billion of aid, It isn't coming. So, a couple hours later, guy's fired. And later on, it's he's at an event. I think it was Council on Foreign Relations, but I'm not sure about the event. But he's telling the story, and it's on YouTube, and you can find it. And he's like, yeah, and wouldn't you know it, son of a bitch got fired. So so the threat worked, which is really interesting. So I mean, the fact that Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was on the board of directors for apparently a large natural gas company and making $1 million a year. So the allegation, or one of the allegations against Biden, is that that was a conflict of interest. So whether or not that's true, in Biden's story, he says that unless you do this thing, you are not getting this aid, which is kind of the same as what Trump's being accused of here. So so it's kind of a weird accusation in that Biden and the Obama administration would have kind of a similar sort of liability. Now their motivations would be different, possibly. So you can split those legal hairs if you wanted to. But yeah, so that's interesting. So, but whatever. The House passed the bill. So now it goes to the Senate. And the latest thing that we're hearing is that there's a rumor going around that the House is going to not refer the articles to the Senate. And the reason for doing that would be that the Senate is Republican controlled. It requires a 2/3 vote in the Senate to convict on an impeachment trial, and they don't have the votes. So it's highly unlikely, unless all the Republicans flip on Trump. If they're all never Trumpers and they were just waiting for their time, unless that happens, chances of Trump being convicted are slim to none. So, and the people in the House know that. So, if they turn over the case to the Senate, right away, and the Senate, spends a day or a week on a trial and then says, not guilty, then that gives the Republicans a talking point for the 2020 elections. They say, see, the corrupt Democrats, they impeached, illegally or whatever, and Trump was acquitted. He's an innocent man, and just goes to show you can't trust the Democrats. So that would be probably a negative against the Democrats, and you have to remember, in U.S. politics, the people who vote Democrat are going to vote Democrat. The people who vote Republican are going to vote Republican. It's only the swing states that really decide the elections, and there's like 5 states that do that, like Ohio and Florida, Michigan. I'm trying to remember the other ones, but whatever it is, so those are the people, the middle 5%. Of actual people that actually vote, because most people don't vote because it's garbage. But so those are the people that are being targeted by the Democrats and the Republicans. So on the other hand, if the House holds on to the articles and doesn't let the trial start, then they can claim a political win, and they don't have the counterpoint from the Republicans saying, well, he was acquitted, so go pound sand. So that's interesting, and I wanted to look it up. So this is a constitutionus.com. They just have a copy of the Constitution up there. So this is Article 1. Article 1 deals with Congress. Section 2 says House Representatives shall choose their Speaker and other officers and shall have the sole power of impeachment. So all that language in this bill about that is correct. Then Section 3 talks about the Senate. Number 6, the Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. When sitting for that purpose, they shall be on oath or affirmation. When the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside, and no person shall be convicted without the concurrence of 2/3 of the members present. 7. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office or of honor, trust, or profit under the United States, but the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. So House of Representatives votes to start the impeachment. Trial happens in the Senate, and Senate has to convict with 2/3 majority, and it's not. So if the Senate convicts, then Trump's out of office, but then that's it. So after that, then whoever could bring a criminal case or civil case against him for actual criminal or civil penalties. So yeah, which brings me to I think hopefully my last point. So what they're looking for is to remove him from office and to bar him from running again, from holding any office in the future. To which I was on Twitter last night, and both Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders said that he's been impeached, and I look forward to serving my duty as a senator and sitting as a juror in this trial. So I actually said this to both Bernie and to Warren here, but with Warren, I saw it like right as it posted, so I was an early responder and got actually a fair bit of direction here. So Elizabeth Warren says Donald Trump has abused our diplomatic relationship and undermined our national security for his own personal political gain. By voting to impeach him, the House has taken an important step to hold him accountable. I'm ready to fulfill my constitutional duty in the Senate. And I said, wouldn't that be a conflict of interest, seeing as how you're running against him? And a whole shitstorm of replies, as lots of people got triggered. So so yeah, Bernie and Warren, and I don't know, there might be still one or two other senators technically in the race, are directly running against Trump. So personally, I think that would be a conflict of interest. There's nothing in the Constitution here about that. So, I mean, it's not a matter of law that they would have to recuse themselves, but just general legal ethics. If you have one vested interest in a case, then you're not supposed to be, responsible for reviewing it, whether you're the judge or a juror. So, that's that seems pretty straightforward. And the other part, that kind of complicates the whole thing is that it's like, okay, so Trump's being impeached for possibly affecting Biden's chances for election. But then if Warren and Bernie are on the jury for trying Trump for interfering with Biden's chances, aren't they then interfering with his chances? Because if convicted, he won't be able to hold any office in the future either. So he won't be able to be president or elected president in 2020. So it's sort of like this like Mobius strip of bullshittery of the different parties and different people running for president, fighting against each other. So I mean, it's interesting stuff. So when you accept that all of this politics is theater, then I was telling this to Inertia on the Discord the other day that it's much easier to deal with the insanity that all of this is. I mean, the Republicans are saying this was an illegal vote and blah blah blah. No, it wasn't an illegal vote. I mean, the House of Representatives has that power. They chose to exercise it. Whether it was assuming all their allegations are true, let's just grant that for the sake of argument. Whether those crimes rise to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors, that is for the Senate trial to determine. So it's not an illegal vote. It may be, a politically motivated vote. And that's probably true. So they say Trump was the third or is the third president to be impeached. First was Andrew Johnson, which was, if I remember my history books correctly, it was basically over the firing of a cabinet member in Johnson's administration, and so that was a politically motivated impeachment. Then we had Clinton in the 90s. I was a teenager at the time, so I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention at the time, but that was definitely politically motivated. I remember listening to the news and the talk radio at the time. And the Republicans were all in for impeachment and conviction, and the Democrats were not. So the people saying today that it's like, well, this has never been such a politically motivated thing. It's like, no, that's total nonsense. Every single one, of which there are three, it was a political maneuver. And then there's the rumor, if that rumor is true, that they're not going to hand over the articles, whatever that means, It's like, well, I mean, they're online. They could just look them up. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that they have to wait to be, hand delivered or anything to the Senate. So yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. I'm sure, like if you look up Robert's rules of orders, there's some cockamamie something or other that creates a procedure. But I mean, I don't see why the Senate couldn't just decide, like, well, we have the articles right here. They're on Congress.gov. Maybe we'll put this on Steam Save just to be sure that everything is saved. So it's just entertaining. And if you really want to be entertained, look at Twitter. Because I mean, like as these people responding to me, a lot of them just don't seem to understand that. Yes, it is her job to be in the Senate, like T Nasty here. So she can't do her job as senator. It's like, well, she can. It's just a conflict of interest. So the ethical thing to do would be to not sit on the jury of the accused that you have a direct interest against. It's fairly simple stuff, but we'll see how they actually, do that. But that is the news. I was, in the Discord, Beggars was saying that, as an Australian, he's sick of hearing about this. And it's like, well, get ready. It's going to be, 6 months of wall-to-wall news coverage of this, circus. So remember, the most important thing out of all of this is that when you opt out of their money, you take your power away from these people and take it back onto yourself. So, using crypto, that is the actual revolution. So I hope all of you are not just trying to trade crypto, not just trying to stockpile, but to actually use crypto in your lives, because that's going to be the next wave of history, really.